In the frozen stillness beyond the mapped stars, where the universe itself seemed to hold its breath, Captain Zarrar stared through the viewport of the Erebus, his ship a drifting speck against the endless black. He had been summoned by a transmission no human ship should have received, a whisper encoded into dark radiation, a signal that gnawed its way through the void straight into his mind, the source, a ruin older than galaxies, anchored at the heart of a dead multiverse. They had called it the apex Singularity, but the ship's ancient records spoke of it differently, in languages stitched together from madness and prophecy, the heart beyond meaning. As the Erebus slid closer, space itself seemed to recoil, as if reality was thinner here, stretched tight like brittle glass over an endless abyss. Captain Zarrar felt it too, not just the mindless fear of the unknown, but a pressure behind his thoughts, a looming presence beyond rational comprehension. The crew, once seasoned explorers hardened by years of impossible voyages, had fallen silent, their eyes hollow, their movements mechanical. It was as if something unseen had already begun consuming them from within. Dr. Stephen Strange, or what was left of him, awaited them there. Zarrar had not believed it at first. Strange had disappeared centuries ago, lost in the fractures between multiverses after the Great Collapse. But now, the voice in the transmission was unmistakably his, though twisted by time and something worse. It spoke in a cadence that bent syntax and logic, the words forming and unforming as if struggling against forces beyond language. "Come," it said, "see." Against all better judgment, Zarrar obeyed. The Erebus docked against the impossibly ancient structure, its metal hull groaning like a wounded animal as if rejecting the unnatural contact. Boarding the ruin was like stepping into another reality. The air was thick, heavy with invisible currents that brushed against skin and mind alike, whispering half-heard blasphemies that seeded themselves in the subconscious. The walls of the apex Singularity pulsed with an organic shimmer, flowing like a living thing frozen mid-death, the surface etching and re-etching itself in shifting symbols that screamed just below perception. Captain Zarrar moved deeper into the ruin, each step heavier than the last, his mind fraying at the edges. The path was a spiral, endlessly descending, yet somehow always leading further away from any sane geometry. It was not a place built for human senses. Along the way, they passed remnants, fragments of civilizations so alien and vast that their mere bones radiated a psychic scream of extinction. Towering statues of things that defied form, murals etched in dimensions the eye could not fully parse, and decaying echoes of battles fought across timelines not yet born. The few crew members who remained stumbled after him, their wills tethered thinly by fear and awe, their minds unraveling thread by thread. Some began to whisper, muttering to themselves, arguing with voices only they could hear. Some wept, their tears turning black as ink. Others simply collapsed, their bodies convulsing as if rejecting the horrifying insights clawing into their souls. At the center of the structure, in a vast chamber where the floor rippled like liquid obsidian and the air shimmered with realities colliding, Zarrar found him. Dr. Strange, or rather, a being that had once been him, hovered above a rift in space itself, his body fused with alien architectures of thought and form, his eyes dark pools reflecting infinite screaming stars. His voice, when it came, was both inside and outside Zarrar's skull, vibrating through every cell. "I saw truth," Strange said, "and truth devoured me. I looked beyond the veil, and the veil looked back." With trembling resolve, Captain Zarrar demanded answers. What was this place? What had Strange found? Strange's smile was a wound in the fabric of being, an expression that conveyed not joy, but the pure agony of unbounded awareness, the multiverse. He rasped, "Is not a ladder of higher realms, it is a pit, a gnashing maw of hungry existences stacked atop one another, each more ravenous, more broken than the last. We are not explorers, we are prey." As Strange spoke, the rift before him pulsed, widening. From its depths came tendrils of unreality, twisting shadows that bled into the world, rewriting matter and mind alike. One crew member was caught by a stray tendril. He did not die in any recognizable way, but rather his existence was edited, removed as if he had never been, leaving only a gnawing void where he had stood. Zarrar realized the full horror. This was not destruction, it was erasure, a consumption of meaning itself. And strange, monstrously fused to the machinery of the ruin, was the gatekeeper now, a broken sentinel both guarding and feeding the hunger beyond. "You came seeking knowledge," a strange whispered, his voice crumbling into echoes of itself. "But knowledge is a poison here. Every answer breeds new despair. Every truth strips away the illusions that make existence bearable. There is no salvation, only deeper hungers." Zarrar's mind buckled under the weight of revelation. He saw flashes, visions of countless worlds devoured by things that existed not to dominate, but to consume significance itself. Great civilizations screaming in silence as they were unwritten. Gods falling like motes of dust into endless oblivion. He saw humanity's fate not as a grand destiny among the stars, but as a brief, blind accident staggering toward a doom so total it would leave not even the memory of pain. In that moment, Captain Zarrar understood why the ruin had called to him. It needed witnesses. It needed conduits through which despair could seep into untouched worlds, breaking down the last strongholds of hope and meaning. But something within Zarrar rebelled, a flicker of defiance against the cosmic indifference that sought to devour him. Drawing upon reserves of strength he did not know he possessed, he turned his will against the pull of the rift, dragging himself back through the shuddering corridors of the ruin, the very walls screaming as they tried to hold him. Strange's laughter, or was it weeping, chased him through the endless spirals. The few surviving crew members who followed him were no longer wholesome babbled nonsense. Others moved like puppets whose strings had been frayed by unseen hands, but Zarrar pulled them onward, a shepherd through a collapsing reality. They reached the Erebus as the apex Singularity began to convulse, the ruin crumbling inward as the rift consumed its foundations. The ship's engines howled in protest as Zarrar forced them to flee, the stars themselves warping and stretching as if trying to snare them in threads of unmaking. Finally, with a gut-wrenching lurch, the Erebus broke free, hurtling into the cold embrace of normal space. But normalcy was an illusion that Captain Zarrar could no longer trust. In the days that followed, the surviving crew fell into comas or madness, their minds caught in endless cycles of horror they could not articulate. Zarrar alone remained lucid, if such a word could still apply. Because he understood the true, final horror, it was not the ruin itself, not Strange's fate, not even the ravenous things that slept between realities. It was the simple, devastating truth that the universe they knew, the galaxies, the laws of physics, the fragile beauty of life was an anomaly, an accident of stability in an otherwise seething, predatory chaos. Their reality was a flickering candle in a hurricane of cosmic decay. It would not last. It was not meant to last. Zarrar sat alone on the bridge of the Erebus, staring into the abyss beyond the viewport, feeling the slow, creeping infection of knowledge hollow him out. He no longer dreamed of exploration or glory. Those were illusions for children. Now he dreamed only of silence, of forgetting, of vanishing before the greater darkness remembered this tiny, defiant spark and snuffed it out for good. In the end, he recorded a message, not a warning, but a confession, a testament to the unbearable truths he had unearthed. He spoke of the apex Singularity, of Strange's final fate, of the monstrous architecture of existence itself. And he ended with a whisper, barely audible over the static of the dying transmitter. There are truths we are not meant to know, not because they are forbidden, but because they are voids in which meaning itself dies. We sought the stars believing we would find ourselves. Instead, we found the infinite hunger that watches us from the spaces between. We are the dream of a dead multiverse, and the dreamer is waking. As the final echoes of his voice died into the endless static, Captain Zarrar turned off the lights on the bridge. He did not need them anymore. Darkness was honest. Darkness was safe. Darkness did not lie. Somewhere in the vast, uncharted cold, something stirred an ancient hunger, sensing the flicker of defiance still burning against the odds. It would come, sooner or later, it always did. Zarrar smiled a broken, bitter smile into the darkness. He would be ready, or at least he would not scream. Not this time. There were worse fates than death. Far worse, like knowing, and through the endless corridors of space, through the dying breaths of forgotten worlds, through the multiverse's collapsing skeleton, a whisper grew louder. The dreamer is waking. And it dreams of nothing. This was Dark Universe Files, Captain Zarrar's final voyage into the abyss of truth.